contact information right down here. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to just send me an email. Okay, and I mean that sincerely. And as I said, you'll get a copy of this, but if you have any questions, just let me know. And first of all, we're going to define what Google Sheets are. Now, Google Sheets is a spreadsheet application. For those of you that might be conversant with Microsoft Excel, it's very similar to Excel. One of the features of it, just like the other Google apps, it's free to use. And by that, I mean, if you have a Google account, which means if you have Gmail, and even if you don't, you can set up a Google account very quickly. It's completely free, okay? Now the app is cloud-based, and all that means is that it's not physically installed on your computer. So that means you can use it on your laptop, your desktop, your tablet, your phone, whatever you want. All you have to do is have access to the internet, and it's available to you. Now, one of the beauties of this is that files created with Google Sheets, in other words, these spreadsheets, they can also be shared with others. So it makes it very easy to collaborate, okay, with friends and family, or if you're in a work situation or organization. All right, it's very easy to do that. And one of the last things that I like to bring up is that Google Sheets has an automatic save feature. So in other words, when you're working along in your spreadsheet, you don't even have to go to any kind of button or menu to save it. It automatically does that for you. Okay, so here is what we're going to talk about a little bit today. We're going to start with creating a new spreadsheet. I'm going to go through creating it from scratch, a blank one, as well as going through how to work it from a template. We're going to talk about menus, rows, columns, various data types. We're going to get into formulas and functions, and I don't want to scare anyone with that, okay? If you are not a math-oriented person, and if this has been kind of keeping you away from this type of a spreadsheet type application, we're going to just show you some basics and how easy it is to use. And what we're also going to do is show you how to share and collaborate, so that if you have a spreadsheet that you're working on, you want to share it with someone, you're able to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and pause this for a second, hopefully. And just so I can get a little idea of what everyone has been experience-wise, what I'm going to do is launch a you know what, I'm going to stop that all there. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll, and it's about how many questions did I put in here? About 4 questions. It's just going to give me a little bit of a feel for where everyone's at. So I'm going to launch it, and all you have to do is click on it, you know, yes, no, very simple questions. And what I want to make sure you understand is completely anonymous. So I don't know who's doing what there. So, all right. Can everybody see the questions? So just go ahead and answer yes or no. All right. And you have to scroll to see the last one. Okay. There you go. I wasn't sure anyone could see it because I didn't see any responses yet. Just answer it to the best of your ability. That's all. Okay. Just about. Yeah, 17 people, so we need a couple more. Okay. Charlotte, you're on an iPad. Is that right? I think her name was Charlotte, right? Go ahead. You might have to click around on top a little bit. since you're on an iPad. You can unmute yourself if you
Okay.
want. Okay, you might have to click. It should show up though right away. Annie, you have any suggestions on that one? Do you see it now, Charlotte?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
I'm on an
Okay.
iPad and it came through.
Okay, did you have to, I don't know who said that. Whoever-
Juliet, no, it just
Hi,
came up.
Juliet. Okay, thank you. Did you have to click anything special or no?
No, it just came
Hmm.
up.
It just popped up?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, Charlotte, I'm not sure about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end this and just kind
Oh,
of share this with you all. All right. And this is basically, I'm just going to share this with you. So this is what the class as a whole. So the first one, have you ever used Google Apps before? It's like about half of you have. Have you ever used Excel? So we have quite a few Excel users in here. So that's fine. Have you ever created a spreadsheet? Yes. What features interest you the most? Navigating, okay. Kind of a mix of interests there, which is perfect. Okay, let me admit these other folks. Okay, so as I said, this is a beginning class. So what we're going to do is we are going to go at a very slow pace. And if you have questions, just let me know. Okay, so let's go back into our slideshow. Or not. Would help if I get back into the right spot. There we go. All right, so we'll share our screen. There we go. Okay, there we are. We're back. So first of all, to get started in Google Sheets, okay, you can do a couple things. Now, it sounds like most of you have used the Google Apps, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on this. But just for your knowledge, you can just go to google.com, sign into your account. If you don't have an account, you can create one. The other side, if you're in one of the apps already, for instance, if you're in your Gmail or whatever, if you click on the apps grid right up here, okay, everyone see that 9-dot grid. When you see that, all right, that allows you, that says it opens up the menu for all the Google apps. Now, this picture may not look the same as yours because you can move these apps however you want. Okay, so what I have a tendency to do is to move most of them to the top. All right, so these are the ones that I use most often. Okay, so I think we're all pretty okay with that from what I've seen, based on the poll results. So this is the first thing we're going to talk about today. Now I'm going to hide my Zoom floating bar because it's getting in my way. So now this is, as I said, this is the Google Sheets homepage. You know you're in Sheets because it has this green image here. All right, when you go to the Sheets homepage, you'll see it again right up here. And this page is kind of in two sections. The first part, the upper part here, has to do with starting a new spreadsheet, either from scratch, from blank, if you will, brand new one, or these here have to do with a template. And just again, to define template very simply, all that means is that, whoops, there we go. All that means is it's a predefined format. So in other words, if you want to do something and you're not exactly sure how to set it up, you can look at this template, what they call up here, template gallery, and I'll let you do that on your own time. And it has a lot of different ideas, be it a budget, be it a to-do list, expense reports, all kind of things like that, all right? So we're going to start pretty much by talking about the first piece of this. Okay, and what I'm gonna do here, and this is what I was saying before, is that I'm gonna go ahead, whoops, and go into this live. So I'm gonna just go and into my sheets. Make sure I'm in the right account. There you go. And I'm gonna find my sheets right here in my apps. So I click on that. And here I am on the home page. Okay, again, if you want to do this with me, fine, but you don't have to. You can just kind of go and listen and watch and then try this later on your own time, or either way is fine. So we're going to go ahead and get started by creating a blank spreadsheet. Now, for those of you that aren't too familiar with it, let me just give a few definitions. Okay, so we're all okay with that. A spreadsheet, very simply, it's made up of columns. So the columns are our vertical data, and they are denoted by the letter. So for instance, this would be column E, and the other part of our sheet is composed of rows. So here we have all the rows. So for instance, this would be, and they're denoted by numbers. So for instance, this would be row 4. Okay, and where the cell, where rather the column and the row intersect, I got ahead of myself there, that's called the cell. All right, so in this case, the cell is called B2. You always say the letter first and then the number. Okay, now we're going to start with some simple things, but again, remember that this cell is where you're going to enter in the data. Okay, and you can always tell where you're at in your spreadsheet as well. First of all, this is an easy one, a visual, but you can also see it right up here where it says name box. For instance, if I just go ahead and randomly go somewhere else and you're like, where are you at? I'm at F9. Okay. And again, if you have any questions as we're going along with this, please let me know. So far we have columns, we have rows, we have cells. Up here are our menus. And again, the menu up here, this is the way Google calls it. Google Sheets calls them. They call them menus. So if we click on one, you're going to see several options. And when you see this gray bar right over here, this means that there's more options. So you might have to scroll. You can either scroll by holding your left mouse button, or you can just use your mouse wheel, either way. So each of these comes with its own set of tools underneath. Okay, so if you're looking for something, you're not sure where it might be at, you can just go ahead and look at those. Now, the line toolbar right underneath is pretty much almost like a shortcut. And what I mean by that, these are going to be some of the features that you use most often. So for instance, and if you don't know what something is, again, remember, you can just hover right underneath and it will tell you what it does. All right, now you're going to see some of these if those of you have taken the Docs class, or if you're familiar with Word or even Excel. Some of this looks somewhat similar. Okay, the difference right here for our sheets is that we have this area right here where we can format our numbers. Okay. Any questions? Yes, no, maybe? Anybody? You still with me? Did I lose anybody yet? I just want to make sure I didn't lose anybody. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and go a little bit further with this. Okay. So here we said we have our rows and our columns. When we refer to the cell, we always say it by the letter and then the number. So in this case, it's B1, and no, we're not playing bingo, okay? The other thing I wanted to mention too is when you start a blank worksheet, all right, from scratch, it doesn't give it a name, all right? So right here, you're just gonna see, it's just gonna call it Untitled Spreadsheet. And if you wanna go back home, all you do is click on the home button right there and it takes you back. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so let's go back into our, excuse me, our PowerPoint here. The next thing this next slide that I just put in here, this is more for reference. So just so everyone's aware of columns, rows, cells, menus here, and where you can rename the spreadsheet. Okay, one other quick thing I just want to show you that I forgot to show you up here. When we were talking about menus, okay, that's these two rows right here. One thing that happens, and I bring this up because I've done it several times. When you're working along and you're clicking along, there's this little guy right over here, this caret. I call it a caret. It's the top of an arrow. If you click on it, it hides the menus. And sometimes, especially in Excel, I've noticed people will accidentally just click it and say, what happened? I lost it. You didn't lose it. All you have to do is click on it again and it brings it right back. Okay, so let's go back. And now that, again, this is just for reference for yourself. But the next thing I want to talk about is, since we've talked about rows and columns and cells, the next thing we want to talk about is what we're going to put in the cell. All right, and these are just some examples of what can go in a cell. So for instance, we have numbers, of course, text, which is simply just the words. We can put in dates and we can format them in various ways. And the last thing we can do is we can put in a formula. And we're going to show you how to do each one of those. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my spreadsheet. So I'm back here live. And again, please, if you have any questions, please stop me. Okay. So what I'm going to try to do is recreate that little chart that I just showed you. So the first thing here is I'm going to put in what we're going to call it. Let's see. I'm going to call it cell contents. All right. Now, when you hit enter or return, it comes down to the next row. If you want to go across, you can use your tab or your arrow keys. Okay, just so you're aware of that. You can also stop and pick up your mouse. However, when you're working in a spreadsheet, a lot of times you're working with numbers, so you're going to want to kind of know how to navigate on the keyboard. So here we have, what kind of data can we put in the cell? We can put in numbers. We can put in text. We can put in a date. And what else did we say? Formula. All right. So that's what we can put in here. So now I'm going to go up to my cell and put some actual contents. So for instance, a number, I could put in the number 15. Text, I'm actually going to put in the word words. Okay. Now, do you see what happened right there? If you notice here, when you put in a number is automatically right justified. You can see that there. When you put in text, it's automatically left justified, just so you see the difference. For the date, let's see, today is 4/29/2021. All right, and a formula, for those of you that are first learning this, a formula always starts with an equal sign. So the first thing I put in is my equal sign, and that tells Google Sheets, okay, they're going to put in some kind of a formula here. So what I'm going to put in, for instance, is 12 plus 2, that's what I put in. When I hit enter, it gives me the result. Okay, you always have to start with an equal sign, and then I go ahead and put in 12 plus 2, but it gave me the result of 14. In this case, this formula that I put in here, it's acting just as a calculator. Okay, I just put in 2 numbers, and then it goes ahead and calculates it for me. Okay, so far so good. All right,
I have a question on the date.
Yes,
There's a couple of hash marks or a couple of backslashes between the 4 and the 29. Does the center does the justification change if it's, because right now it's
that was an error, and it doesn't do
okay,
anything.
there we go.
There we go.
Okay, so
Yep.
now it's
Sorry
not
about that.
justified.
Good. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't have you all in a row, so I can't see everybody, but whoever caught that, very good. Thank you. Thank you on that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions about any of this yet? What I want to do is just show you a little bit of editing in this respect here. So in other words, we put in this little chart. It's nothing too much, all right. But let's say we were going to use this chart to show somebody like I am doing with you folks right now. So if I wanted to do some editing, what I would do is the first thing I'm going to do is put in a border. So I'm going to go ahead and select my chart, okay, or the cells that I want the border around. Then I'm going to go up here and like, okay, where's the border? All right, there it is. When I click on it, it has various borders that you can do just on the bottom, just on the top, and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and do it on all sides. Okay, so it basically puts lines on it, just like that. All right, so that's looking good. Then I'm going to take this here and let's see. I'm going to go ahead and make that a little bit bold so it stands out, as well as make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Now, I don't like the way that looks kind of right there. It looks like it went over into column B, okay? What you can do for titles, and it's always very helpful, is you can just go ahead and select the columns that you want to put together. In other words, I want to put A1 and B1 together. So what I can do is select them both, and then I'm going to go ahead and merge them. So now it takes that line away, and let's see what else I could do with that. I would like to go ahead and center it. All right, so where is that? Whenever you don't see something on your toolbar here, you click on more, and you have more options down here. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go into my alignment, and I'm going to center it. Oh, that looks better. I like that. And then this is my own personal thing that I've done because someone showed me this years ago and I've always liked it, is I go ahead and put a fill color in for my title like that. And there we have our own little chart that we just created right now. Okay. Any other questions yet? Now, we didn't talk about formatting the contents here yet. We just wanted to format the little chart that we had. And now one thing that we haven't done yet, and it's a good idea to do, we don't want a lot of untitled spreadsheets, okay, on our drive. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click up here, and whenever you see the blue, that just says you can start keying in right there. So I'm going to give it a name. And in this case, I'm just going to call it, let's see, cell examples. Okay. So there I have my spreadsheet. Now you notice that I didn't have to save anything. It automatically, as I was keying in, you probably saw it up here, it said saving to drive. So it's not a separate operation that you have to do. So for instance, if I want to see that, I'm going to go back to Sheets Home, click on that, And now you can see, I just created this file right here. It's called Cell Examples. It's created by me, and it has a timestamp on it, has the date. Okay. Any questions so far? Everybody's still with me, I hope. We're not sure if you are or not. Okay. All right. So there we are in our cell example. And one thing that this whole file that we're creating is called a spreadsheet. However, within a spreadsheet, you can have several sheets. And if you can see all the way on the bottom right here, you see where it says here, sheet 1. Okay, and that's what we're on right now. If you wanted to add another sheet, okay, you would go ahead and click on the plus sign, and it gives you another sheet, sheet 2, and it's completely blank for you to go ahead and get started with whatever you might want to do. All right, to go back to them. So for instance, here, I want to go back to sheet 1. I just click on it. And sometimes what I find is if I'm going to have several sheets within my spreadsheet, you might want to give them a name. So that's very easy to do. You just go ahead and click on this down arrow right there, little drop down, and I'm going to click on rename. And in this case, I'm just going to call it cells. Okay, and that way I know what I'm talking about. Okay. We're good so far. So again, this was just a simple,
Hi, Kathy.
yes.
My name is Meena, and I'm totally loving Google Sheets. So thank you for teaching us how to use it.
Okay.
I have a question. So this sheet 1 and sheet 2 that you are showing, are they
Yes.
like tab 1 and tab 2 in Excel? Is that what it is?
The in Excel, they also have sheets as well. You have sheets, that's not a tab up here. These are just separate sheets, okay, within your workbook, within your spreadsheet.
Okay. So is there
Okay,
a
so-
tab within a sheet also in a Google Sheet?
Not sure what you mean. When you say tab, what we just may be calling it two different things. That's what I want to make sure. So when I call them down here, I think what you're saying is like when you're looking in Excel and some people call these down here tab 1, tab 2. Is that what you mean?
Yes. That's
Okay,
right.
so tab and sheet in that respect is the same. Okay, does that answer your question? I'm sorry, I wanted to make sure that you weren't referring to this up here.
Yeah. No. I think
No.
you're right. What you just showed me is exactly what I was thinking about.
Okay, okay,
Because when you said sheet 1 and sheet 2, it sounded like two different documents.
okay. No, I'm
But
still,
I was thinking about a tab as
okay,
within a sheet, if you have a big, like a personal information thing, in one you just had name and address, and the other one you had some email address or something, like a
Right.
different tab. That's
Right.
what I was referring to.
yeah, you're right. It's the same thing. You're
Okay.
absolutely right.
Thank you.
Okay, good call. And if you have some questions about that, those of you that are familiar with Excel, I'll try to do the comparable in Sheets. They're both good products. Remember, Sheets is free. Sheets doesn't have quite all the bells and whistles like Excel. Okay, it has a lot and it can do a lot, as you will see. So, all right, so let's go ahead. And now I'm going to go ahead and go into sheet 2. All right, we're going to start doing something else, just so for purposes of example here. We're going to go ahead and create a different little sheet here where we can put in some actual numbers. And these are going to be some, let's just say we are creating some donations. Okay, so I'm just going to call this little chart charitable donations. Okay, and this is just going to be, we're going to donate, we're going to keep a list of places where we donated. Let's say, for instance, Red Cross, Cancer Society, what else do we have? DG Library, and I'll have PRC, which stands for People's Resource Center. Okay, got everything covered there. Okay, now let's say we just go ahead and put in various amounts. Okay, for Red Cross, we donated $100. Cancer Society, maybe 300. Downers Grove Library, of course, 500. Whoops, that was supposed to be 500, not 5. Sorry, Annie.
Okay.
Okay. And PRC 250, let's just say. Now, if we wanted to know the total, all right, of our donations, what we can do is say, okay, I want to see what this all adds up to. And of course, this is a simple example. There's just a few of them. But when you have a long spreadsheet, of course, you don't want to be adding that up manually. So again, what you're going to do is when you don't see something on one of these menu bars here, you click on the 3 dots where it says more. And what you're going to do here is we're going to go to functions. And I'm going to, again, it has a little drop down. So I'm going to click on that. In this case, I'm going to say sum. So what I want to do is sum up these donations right here. So you have to tell, again, you can see it has an equal sign. It has the sum, which is the function. Now you have to tell it where you want to sum. So I want to start here and I want to do all the way to there. Click enter, and there's my result. Okay, now the way you look at that, when you click on the total here of 1150, all right, the way it actually is set up, like I said, always equal sign, always a function name. And then within your parentheses right here, you give it the starting point, and then the colon says this is going to be a range. So we have to give it the starting point, the 2, and then from. So we're starting in B2, sum all the way to B5, and give me my total. Okay, everybody good with that? So far, so good. Now, one thing we didn't talk about yet, and we might as well, one thing we can do right here is these numbers, okay, they're more than just numbers. In this case, they're dollars. So if we'd like, all right, we can go ahead. This is one way to do it. We can set up these numbers as currency. And what that does is puts the dollar sign and it puts 2 decimals, okay, as the default. If you don't want that, you say, you know, when I donate, I pretty much just do whole dollars. You can go ahead then select what you want to change and decrease your decimals. Okay, so now we have that formatted a little bit. All right, how we doing? Everybody okay? Yes, no, maybe? All right, I hope so. You're very, very quiet, so it always has me concerned when you guys are quiet. So, all right, so let's go ahead now and do a couple more things with our data here. Let's say now we're doing an analysis. Let's say this was, you know, again, remember, this is just a few. But let's say we wanted to do a lot of analysis on this humongous spreadsheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this data. And now I'm going to copy this data. So let me show you again what I did. I started here, held my mouse down. And you see where you have this little box in the lower right-hand corner. When I move there, you can see it becomes a plus sign. When you see the plus sign, you can go ahead and just copy it over. Did everyone see that? Okay, but you have to remember that you have to see that little plus sign. And that says, all right, I'm ready to copy. So let's say now we've already summed it. Let's see what else we can do. Let's go ahead and take an average. In this case, we're going to take an average of these same numbers. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go ahead down to my last one, hit enter, and there is my average. Okay. So I started in C2. I went down to C5, and there's my average. Okay. Now let's say I wanted to do a few more things with this same data. Another thing we could do is we could select it like we did before. And instead of just copying it to one column, I can copy it over to several. But again, I have to select it, see the cross, and then you can go ahead and copy it. And it copied it all the way over. All right. So let's see, we have a total, we have an average, we have a, what else can we do? We can count. Now, count simply means how many donations do I have? So again, you start from the top, go to the bottom there, hit enter, and I have 4. All right. Again, everyone's seeing kind of the hang of this now. You go to what you want to, the function, the area that you want to do an action on. You select what function you want. In this case, I'm going to do what's the maximum donation. All right. There you go. That's the max. And of course, if we have max, we need to do the min. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and select the same data, hit enter, and that's my analysis on my data. Okay. Any questions? Yes, no, maybe. I'm going to pause my share and see if I can come back to you guys so I can see some faces here. All right. All right. Any questions whatsoever? Yes, no, maybe. Resume share. Okay.
If you want to copy your formula from one to another, how do you copy and paste?
Okay. Depending what you want to do. Now, in this case, I was using, these are separate functions on the same data. Okay. But let's just say, I think to your point, let's just say I wanted to, and I'm going to go ahead and insert a column. I'll say insert column right. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to insert column left. Okay. Let's say that this was for last year or whatever, and my donations are a little bit different for this year. All right. And let's just say for purposes of example, whoops, oh, I got carried away there. All right. 5 and then 6. All right. I think what you're saying is, for instance, you want to see the same total that we did here. Okay. So what you can do is you can go ahead and take this and just slide it right over. And what it does is when you copy the formula over, it modifies it for the cell range.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay. Okay. Did that clarify that for you and for everyone? That's a real good point. So in other words, here was the formula we put in. We put in sum and we said, take the sum of start here at B2 and go down to B5. Well, now I want to do the same thing, but my cells are different over here. I want you to start in cell 2 and go down to cell C5 and do the same thing. Okay, so it's all a matter of copying just like that. And again, you always have to have that square. Sometimes, just so you know, people have a little bit of a question on that. You do have to get this right in the corner there, just so you're aware of that. Okay. Any questions? Yes, no, maybe? All right, I don't see anything in the chat, so I think,
I have a question, if I might.
Sure.
Is there a place where you could title the column?
oh, sure. How would we do that? What do you think we want to do there? It's a good point, very good point. I didn't do it. That's a real good thing. So you want to title these columns right here? Is that
Sorry, I
what-
can't, I lost you. I couldn't hear you for a while. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you want to title these columns? Or what do you want to title?
Yeah, so as I look at it, I know what 1150 means, or I know what 4 means.
Okay, so there's a couple different things you could do. Okay, in this case, one of the things we could do is you could put a row here. So I'm going to click on there and I'm going to go insert and I'm going to say row above. So here you could put actual titles if you want, one way. So in other words, you could say, or I'm going to mix two different things here, but let's say, for instance, these first ones here were from last year. So I'm going to say 2020, whoops. And then I'm going to go over to 2021. But what do I have to do? What do I have to do? I have to switch these, not from currency, all right? So I could switch it to just either a number, or I could switch it to a date. Let's see what it does when I give it a date. Oh, we don't want that, all right? We can just go ahead and put in your actual number there, or let's see if we take it as plain text. No, it still doesn't like that. Automatic. There we go. And again, in this case, I might take those, bold them, and then, whoops, go ahead and center them. Okay, let's say for that. Then, all right, another thing you could do, and I apologize for not knowing who asked the question, but a very good question. What we could do here is say, okay, insert a column to the left. And then what I could do right here is say, for instance, total. All right. What I could do, what I could do right here is do another insert column left. Okay. And here, this was what? This was our average. So this would be another possible way of doing it. Okay. Does that answer your question, whoever asked me?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Again, the idea, and I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things you want to be able to do is, starting to learn how to do these calculations, formulas, and functions are great. But just like you said, you want to know what that data is. And if you're going to be sharing this, or even if it's something just for yourself, and you do all this work, it's nice to put these little labels on it. So when you look at it 6 months down the road, you know what you're talking about there. Okay, be it for yourself or for someone else. Okay. Any questions on that? Yes, no, maybe? All right, you're still with me? I didn't lose anybody yet? I'm not sure. Now I'm checking. Now I'm coming in and checking to make sure nobody's sleeping, nobody's whatever. Those of you that I can see, I'm just checking. No, I'm just kidding you. I just want to make sure everyone's doing okay. All right. So again, now in this particular spreadsheet, we have 2 sheets. All right. We have the one we're working on right now. Then I'm going to click all the way down here. And that's my cell content sheet. Remember that we did. Again, I think it's a good idea when you start working with multiple sheets down here that you name them. It's just easier. You can always go in and see it and you're like, oh, okay. But in this case here, I'm just going to click on that, rename this. This one here, I'm just going to go ahead and call donations. Okay. Any questions? C1 show 2020 rather than C2. Oh, I was mixing, just gonna put tabs right here. This here is the whole title of the entire, spreadsheet, if you will. Good question, though. And one thing we could do very simply, though, since you brought that up, let's say now I have this whole big Winkins spreadsheet over here, and I'm going to go ahead and let's see, we've got everything. We don't need one thing very quickly. We don't need this last column here. I copied too many. So I'm just going to go ahead and select it. There's different ways to do the same thing, but one way is just to hit your delete key on your keyboard. And that got rid of the column for us. Something else we could do, though, is we have this whole spreadsheet going kind of across all the way. If we wanted to take our title here, like we did before, we could go ahead and select all the way over, all right? Then click on merge, which brings that together. So now it looks like one big title. Then I could bold it. Then I could make it a little bit bigger. And then the last thing I want to do is to center it. All right. And of course, because I like this, to do something like that. Okay, that was a good question, though. I see what you were saying. Okay. Any other questions about that? Otherwise, I'm going to hop back over into our PowerPoint right now, or our sheets. I keep saying that, PowerPoint, our slides. So a couple other things that we want to go over, and I'll try to be quick, is so far everything we've been talking about is kind of in Google. And what do I mean by that? Well, we started a brand new spreadsheet. We are going to talk a little bit about using a template, but again, we're still in Google. There are going to be times where you would want possibly to use a file or an Excel spreadsheet that you have on your computer. And that's going to be for something called a file picker. I did not make up the names. I think they should have made something a little bit more elaborate, you know, but they called it file picker, and that's what it is. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that real quick. Whoops. So let's go ahead and say that I'm going to go back into my Google Sheets. All right, and I'm going to go back into my Google Sheets homepage. And in this case, instead of starting from scratch, I'm going to go ahead and use a template. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I'm just going to go up here. Let's see, what do I want to use a template for? There's all kinds of things here that you can use. Okay, this is a very good place to start. Again, if you know you want to do something, you're not exactly sure how to set it up, this could give you an example. So instead of always using the budget one that I usually do, this time I'm going to use team roster because I was at my granddaughter's T-ball game the other day. So this is a sample of a template. All right. And what you're able to do in the template is then modify it to your needs. So for instance, we're just going to do a little bit of this. In this case, team roster, well, it's not 2016, it's 2021. All right. And her team name was, and so we're not going to get into the whole Cubs and Sox thing. Her team name was the Dodgers. I got to be able to spell it though. All right. So we have modified it a little bit. And then with a template, what you can do is you can just go and start putting in the information. All right. All right. And you could just go ahead, fill in as much as you need or as little as you need. You have a notes column here. You can go ahead and add other data here that you wanted. For instance, if you wanted instead of notes, maybe you wanted to say, not player. Maybe we wanted to say position, something like that. Oh, we did have position there. That's not what I wanted. Let's say instead of notes, I wanted town. That's what I wanted. Okay, so you could just go ahead and do that. You can modify this any way you want. And all it's doing, it's making a copy of that template. Okay, you're not changing the original. So what I like to do, not to get confused, is I like to go ahead and give it a name. In this case, I'm just going to call it KG for me, team roster. Okay, so this is an idea of using a template. Now I'm going to go back to my Sheets homepage. All right, and you can see so far what we're doing here. Here was our cell examples. Here is my team roster that I changed, I modified. All right, the original template is still up there. So in other words, when you use a template, you're not changing the original. That is still there. You're customizing it to your needs. Okay, any questions on that? Using of a template. Okay, the other thing I want to show you here is this file picker. Again, funny name, but it's all the way here on the right-hand side. When you click on that, it opens up a screen. And this first part is things we've talked about. This is dealing with Google. All right, my drive shared with me. We'll talk about that in a minute, start and so forth. But when you come up here to upload, okay, upload says, all right, let's see what it says. You can drop and drag things. Those of you that have been in some of my classes, you know I'm not a good dropper and dragger. So I prefer to go right here and it says select a file from your device. All right, so I click on that and basically what happens is it goes over to your file explorer. Those of you that are familiar with Windows, all right, you can decide, all right, where is my information? All right, so you can pick anywhere you want where you stored that information. And again, this is information that's on your device, or in this case, I wanted to throw one more thing to you. I have it on my OneDrive. Now, to confuse you just a little bit, OneDrive is the Microsoft version of the cloud drive, if you will. Google Drive is the Google version of the cloud information. So just so you're aware of that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select my Excel example here. Now, this is an Excel spreadsheet that I'm taking and I'm going to open it. And when it does that, it opens it in Google Sheets. Okay. So again, this is going from Excel into Sheets. You could also do it the other way where you have a sheet file and then you download it to your device and open it with Excel. You can go both ways, all right? There may be some differences based on what you're doing, but for the most part, it works pretty well together. Now, this is an example of, it's just a very simple budget. Those of you that are wanting to start somewhere with Excel, this was built from a template, and then you can modify it any which way you want. Okay, but again, this is Excel coming into Google Sheets. When I change it here, okay, it's just going to change it on my drive, on my Google Drive. Okay, so let's say, for instance, here, if I'm looking at this, okay, this is our budget. What's this up with this for food? Wait a minute. In May, we have somebody coming home from college. So we know that is not going to be just that amount. It's probably going to be more like, let's say, closer to that or more. All right. Any questions on that? How to bring it in from Excel to Sheets using the file picker?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is that now saved in file sheets?
This right here, the Excel
The whole-
budget.
The whole spreadsheet.
Yes, right. And we'll show you, because what we're going to do, we'll go back to Google Home, Sheets Home rather, sorry. Let's just show you that. It's a good question. And here it is right here.
So you still have it on Excel, and then you also
Yes.
have it on Sheets.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thanks.
Good question. But again, remember what you have to remember what you're doing, what you want to do with
Right.
it as well. Okay, good question. So let's go back into this Excel budget example. And one of the last things that we pretty much wanted to talk about very simply is collaboration. And what that means simply is that multiple people can view and edit a sheet, a spreadsheet simultaneously if you want. So in other words, with Google Sheets, everyone working on a project, they're going to be changing or reviewing the same spreadsheet. And as people either make changes or comments, Google Sheets is going to keep track of that, okay, which can be a very, very beautiful thing. All right. Instead of having to have a spreadsheet, email it to someone changes it, brings it back, and you can have, several versions there. So the way this works very simply, and we're going to go through the steps, is that we're going to click on share. And then when we do that, it's going to open up the screen. And here is where we're able to put in our email addresses. That's one way. Or we can just copy the link to this spreadsheet, and then we can put that in an email or wherever we may want to. Okay. And when you do that, this is going to be basically then once you put in your email addresses, you're able to give those people permissions. So in other words, are you going to let them edit it, comment, or just view it only? Again, this here is just the link. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So I'm going to go back into my budget here. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to share this because right now it's just to me, but I'm going to go ahead and share this. All right. And in this case, and just bear with me because I have several email addresses. So I'm going to go ahead and send it to my other me, if you will. And so here's the email address. And here's where you give the permissions. So do I want the other me to be an editor, a viewer, or a commenter? Now, I think for me personally, I think in sheets and spreadsheets, depending what you're doing, who you're doing it with. Okay, if you're the owner, in this case, I'm the owner of this spreadsheet. I don't want really everybody editing it. I would like them, they can comment because I want their input, but I just want them to comment. And then what you do is this you can check or not. This simply says it's going to send an email to that person that you're sharing with. And I like to usually say something like, please review. And if you have a deadline, say, please review, let's say, by Monday, let's just say. Okay, so what that's going to do is that's going to go ahead and send an email to my other self, all right, to say that that's been shared. Now, hopefully I'm going to get us there, so bear with me just a second. So I'm going to go into my Gmail here, and hopefully it's there along with other things. And as you can see right here, it says Kathy PRC. Let's see what it says. It's an invitation. Now you notice here it says invitation to comment. All right. And what it does, it's, let me close that up there so you can see this. It says, Kathy G, my other self has invited you to comment on the following spreadsheet. Again, and see, this is where my little note is. And so then what you do is you open it. All right, now you have to go make sure that on my other self, which is that. I hope I'm not confusing you too much with myself and my other self. But here's what I want to show you. When I, as the owner, as Kathy PRC, okay, I'm the owner of the spreadsheet. I shared it with this version of Kathy, and you see, I only allowed to comment only. Okay, so in other words, if I wanted to say, okay, let's see, I think, you know what? This amount here for January, this just doesn't look right. All right, I think it should be, and right now I'm trying to put in a number and it's not going to let me, it's only going to let me comment. All right, so what I can do as the commenter here, because I was asked to look at it, I could come up right here and say, all right, I think I'm going to put in a comment there, and this is where I would do it. And I would say, I could say something like, I think this total, let me say it this way. I think this January total is low. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. All right. And then what I want you to see is, if you can see right here on the top, when you do it yourself, you'll be able to see it has this little corner that denotes that a comment was made. And when I just hover over it, you can see. All right, now bear with me one more time. All right, now I'm going to go back to my other self, me as the owner, and see, I see, and then I can say, okay, I see that the comment was made right there. And then you can decide what you're going to do next. All right, there's different.
I have a question.
Yes.
When the Excel file is changed in Sheets, it does not change OneDrive. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct. It's only changing it when we're changing it here in Sheets. It's only going to be changed on my Google Drive. The way to get around that would be then to download it back the other way, if that's what you wanted. Good question, though. Yes, they work well, but they don't update simultaneously unless you want them to, because they're two different places in the cloud, if you will. Cloud A, cloud B. I know that sounds funny, but did that answer your question? Whoever that was? Yes, no, maybe. All right, let me look here.
Kathy, this is Meena. I have a different question.
Okay.
So when you share file picked from another place, from OneDrive, and brought
Yes.
a file,
Yes.
does it keep the same file name, or does it give some kind of a difference, so you know that this is in the Google Drive, that's in the Excel, that's in the OneDrive and all that?
Not sure. They're two different places. Okay. The Google Drive is just gonna, when whenever we're working in Sheets and we make any changes, it automatically saves it only to Google Drive. Okay. When I took that file from OneDrive, that was the Microsoft Cloud. So that would be the same as if I took it from Documents on my computer. Okay. It only takes it there as a starting point. It leaves it as is. It doesn't change it on my device. Did that answer your question? I don't think so. So
Yeah,
go.
only partly. So my question is, supposing there was a file in the Microsoft OneDrive, and
Yes.
let's say it was called Kathy's 2020 tax return.
Okay,
So pretend that was the file name in OneDrive.
Right.
If you're copying that file into Google Drive for
Yes.
Google Sheet,
Yes.
would it call it exactly the same thing and then you have to change the file name, or will it say something slightly different?
Yes. No, that's a good question. I think I know what you mean now. So for instance, here, this is what it was called on my OneDrive when I brought it over. Okay. It was called Excel Budget Example. Okay. I can go ahead right here and change it now to whatever I want. So for instance, I could change it now to updated Excel budget example if you want. And that is how, so now if I go back into Google, to my Google homepage, this would be the name in Google Drive.
Okay, perfect.
Did-
Thank you.
Did that answer? That was a
Yep.
good question. Yeah, I think we got there. Sorry, it took me two
No,
steps
no.
there.
No, thank you. This is exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
we have another question. Do
sure.
the people who you share with have to be on Google?
No, however, it seems to work more seamlessly when they are on Google. But you can also go ahead and copy the link like we showed you there instead of sharing. No, I don't want to do that. All right. Instead of sharing it by email address, you can also just copy the link and then you could save that and then you could put that in an email and send it to you, whoever you want to. That's another way of doing it. I hope, did that answer your question? Probably not. Let's go back. All right, let's try this. Let's say, for instance, here, oops. Okay, let me go back to my, there we go. There we go. All right, let's say, for instance, here, I'm going to go back into my team roster and I'm going to go ahead and share it. And instead of doing it this way, we could also copy the link. Okay. And then another way that you can do it is to simply then go into your email. All right, which I'm going to do from this account. All right, I can go into my Gmail, and then what I can do is compose, and I could go and put in, this would be the link, okay, to that spreadsheet. And then you could put in whatever addresses you want.
Did you just double click to copy the link?
Pardon me?
How did you copy the link into the
Okay,
email?
the copying of the link was in, let me back up, was in when I went into here, right here where it says copy link. That's all you have to do. When
And
you
then
copy,
And then you
I
pasted it in?
right, I just did copy link, and then when I went into my email to create it, compose it, then I just did down here, Control V to paste it in.
Okay.
Okay, so there's two ways you can do it. It depends on, I guess, kind of a matter of preference there, which way you like to do it. You can put, now it could be sometimes too, and I've had this happen, depending upon what privileges you give to people, sometimes there can be an issue with they need access or whatever. I know we did that last time, I think, with Google Docs. I restricted it. So in other words, people may try to open it and it's like, you need to request access, which is fine. Then people would just ask via email. And this is all done via email. But by copying the link, you can do it that way too, so that people can just, if you want just people to see it, they're all seeing the same thing. Okay. And let me just show very quickly one last thing here. All right. So again, this was our budget example. And again, this is what it would look like with the comment made, okay, within there. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to finally stop. Let me see who I still have. I may have lost a few, but I think I have most of you. So that's good. Are there any questions about anything we covered at all? Please feel free to go ahead. And I know that's a lot of material. If you're familiar with Excel, you probably would be able to follow along a little bit easier because you've, seen that. If there's something that you're looking for in sheets that you've used in Excel, you can always use the help function as well, okay? And that would be, a way for you to just get more information on that. Okay, I know I've kept you a little bit over, but if there's no more questions, I'd like to just try to do one more thing here. Let me see before you leave me all right, because I think we're starting to lose people. All right, so what I'd like to do is just go ahead and start a new poll. Maybe not. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and launch this again. It's similar to the first one, very easy. This just helps us for planning purposes. So if you just would go ahead and fill this in as honest as you can, it would be helpful. Would really appreciate it. And it was a pleasure having you all. Thank you so much for joining us. So just go ahead and fill this in as you see fit. Again, everything is anonymous, so I don't know who's doing what, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Hope to see you all again.
It was great. Thanks.
Good. Go out, enjoy the rest of the day while the sun is out.